Monkey mouth. Monkey mouth. Monkey mouth.
That's like way back stuff.
I was actually at Chris's house when I was thinking of some names and going to GoDaddy to find domains for what I was going to call this.
Sounds like some shit you and Chris would be doing.
Which actually recently kind of started as an idea to do an online store. And then as I kind of got into it more and realized, the only one around is in Round Rock. And, I went in there and they just had a shitty hidden business. It was dark. It was dingy. Had to take a ticket like at the DPS. And I waited an hour to spend $85. And I knew what I wanted. Like I could have gone in and out exactly in 10 minutes if there was just someone to help me, whatever. And so I counted $1,000 go out the door while I was there for that hour. And then, got on Alibaba and realized what I just paid.
Shout out Alibaba, OG Alibaba gang, bro.
And so realized what I just paid $85 for plus tax. I could have gotten a single unit, exact same thing, shipped to me for $12 from China.
Yeah.
And so the rest is history. I opened my first retail vape shop called Create a Sig. I went with Sig. I actually even remember I was at Chris's house and I got the web domain, Create a Vape and Create a Sig. I think even Create a Vapor I got.
Of course, you like peppered the board, right? Like that's what you do whenever you start getting these domains.
But then what I had two methods behind it. And actually, we've recently kind of changed. Any new stores that are opening are just called Create Smoke and Vape. Nice. Because Sig does have sort of a bad connotation. But back then, this was, late 2012.
That's before anyone knew what the fuck it was.
So the idea,
you had to bridge the gap between you and the consumer because they didn't know what this vapor shit was. So it's like, well, you smoke cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was. I remember like it, and it made sense at the time. Nowadays, everybody and their mom knows what a fucking vape is. So it almost, like you said, kind of has like a nasty feel. 'Cause it's like, I don't want a cig. I'm trying to go get vapor. But back then, it wasn't people were going out looking for vapor. People were trying to go out and find like a realistic substitute for their cigarettes. And so you were kind of working that into the brand. And I mean, it worked very effectively.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed working up there. That's where the bulk of at the time, the bulk of my experience was in retail and retail sales and things like that. And so I did great. Went up there, bullshitted, talked, was sweet to people, answered their questions, and like got them hooked up. And like I know that I personally probably took 24 people completely off from like cigarettes to doing vape, and then just like slowly reducing the amount of nicotine that was in their vape till they were on almost like no nicotine at all. And it was a really dope thing. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say that like vaping is like the absolute healthiest thing you can do. Like I think that like jogging and drinking water and breathing air are the healthiest things you can do, right? But like the point is that if you're going to compare it to smoking, I think it's like pretty fucking obvious, right? Like there are so many like known carcinogens in the cigarettes. It's insane. Like it's like literally, it's like the big industry's trying to poison us. Like it's like there's not just tobacco in that tube at all. Like that. No, bro. There's like some crazy shit in that fucking cigarette, right? Whereas the vapor stuff is just like propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, some nicotine, and some flavoring. You know what I'm saying? Like It's a very, very straightforward thing, especially if you've kind of been on the back end and know what's going on. So I thought it was a really cool deal, and I think it's interesting how you've your trajectory, how you went from the guy with a couple stores doing local vapor stuff to being one of the 5 managing partners of Esco-Bars, which is now one of like probably one of the 5 or 10 most recognizable brands in the vapor space these days.
Yeah, no, it's been a rodeo. So yeah, like you said, it was, circling back to the name, and that was the idea. You might remember you worked there in the early days, and people would come in because it said Sig, and they'd be like, "What is this? Like I can roll my own Sig or whatever?" And
oh
like,
yeah,
I
absolutely dealt with those combos. Yeah, I was one of them.
From that perspective, it worked. And we got people off cigarettes that way, which it felt good to be able to make good money, and especially back then, really good money. I mean, we were the first vape shop within the city limits of Austin, Texas. Opened it on a shoestring credit card budget, and within a matter of 5 months, there was a line out the door. We were doing 160 grand a month in revenue at one location. Had opened 3 more organically within 8 months. And so, it was a blessing, and, it felt good to feel like what was helping, creating my income and all of that was actually helping people. Because like you said, they would come in and tell us every day, they're off cigarettes. And like you said, it's the lesser of two evils. If you're especially if you're in the industry, I get that the whole science and says, well, there's not a lot of or there's still some unknowns because it's just vegetable glycerine and just propylene glycol, what's in the food flavoring, or, is vaping that stuff all right? Well, propylene glycol is used in asthma inhalers, and a lot of things that people breathe in through the hospital. So that's got some history of being inhaled, but vegetable glycerine really has history of, what creates the cloud and kind of holds the flavor. It doesn't have history of being inhaled, but only like eaten and consumed, right? And so I get that, they'll say, oh, well, we've only got 15, 20 years of history. There's what could happen 30 or 40 years, like people with cigarettes. And I get that. But the big scheme is there's 5,000, 6,000 some odd chemicals in cigarettes. We know it makes the lungs black. There's tests that have been done, comparing a vapor's lung to a smoker's lung, and there's a huge difference. And we used to hear that all the time. I'm sure you remember people 2-3 weeks after they quit. I still remember to this day. One of my first ones that I remember is this elderly lady named Mary, and I think she was in her 50s. She had come in the first month or something after we opened. She saw the SIG sign and had heard about these e-cigs. And I ended up helping her, and she was like, I've been trying to quit. I've been smoking for 20, 30 years, and, maybe this will work. I've tried everything, and told me all the bad things. I just can't smell, and I get sick all the time, and I just want to quit, but it seems impossible. And so I got her a kit, and about 2 weeks later, she came in, and I was working the day she came back, and she saw me, and she just kind of started tearing up. It was the first experience I'd had like this, and she teared up, and she was like, Justin, and she was like, I quit. It's easy, and can I come give you a hug? And she told me how, she went out to dinner 3 days ago with her adult daughter, who used to wouldn't be seen with her in public because of the way she smelled, because she smelled like cigarettes. It repulsed her daughter, and so she wouldn't go out with her, and she could smell again, and she could taste again, and she started coughing. She stopped coughing up goo. And so that's kind of our sort of slogan at the retail stores, and everything we do sort of within this industry is providing alternative solutions for addictive behaviors. The lesser of two evils, and maybe in some cases not so evil at all. Nicotine itself has been known to help people focus. It is known as a carcinogen.
I would say it's literally a nootropic. It's literally something that you can do in a healthy way. Again, I was telling you about Joey, the gentleman, the mad scientist behind NeuroRoot, was telling me that nicotine by itself can be particularly beneficial and useful in all these different ways. And so it just gets a bad rap because of the method of delivery that it's been having to be utilized, right? It's the smoking of them cigarettes and all the other crazy carcinogens that are being piggybacked in whenever you're having to consume partially combusted hydrocarbons, man. That's literally the simplest way. It's not the simplest way, those are big words, but that's the with the shortest number of utterances, get that communicated, right? At the end of the day, if you are lighting something on fire that's carbon based and putting it in your lungs, that's carcinogenic. That's just, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just how it works. And so I think it's really nice. I know I'm a big believer. My grandma died from cancer from cigarettes.
Same with my grandpa. He actually passed away from 2 years ago or so. Smoked 40 years COPD.
Yeah,
it was scary too. He would wake up and call my mom. He couldn't breathe. He felt like he was going to die. He just wanted her on the phone. Or
and just breathing doesn't get you any air. You go, and it does nothing. And it's you're just running out of air constantly. You know what I'm saying? It's a miserable. It's a miserable way to go.
It's a scary way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're in and out. It's a scary deal, and so I'm a big believer in the vape stuff, man. I've been a big believer in the vape stuff since before. Like whenever, I didn't really understand what it was whenever we were first getting going, but like the moment that I got there and started seeing what was going on, and like was able to like wrap my head around what we were doing, like within a week of getting to create a cig, I was like, oh, this is like a really good thing that like I can feel really good about being a part of. You know what I'm saying? I really enjoyed my time there.
It was fun. The customers came in. They were happy. They enjoyed vaping. They liked trying different flavors. It was generally a relatively happy customer. I mean, they're, you know, were obviously the problems, the learning curve for your elderly people, but generally,
Man,
it was happy customers.
There was one lady.
Monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth.